know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Such a famous saying from Jesus, but when you think about it, it's actually not very flattering. What is Jesus assuming when he says that the truth shall set you free? He's assuming that we don't have the truth, and we are not free. In fact, Jesus' assessment of humanity is that we are liars and we are slaves. That's why we need the truth that will set us free. What do you think of Jesus' verdict on the human condition? Liars and slaves. Do you agree with it? Well, let's think about our slavery. Jesus explains our slavery in chapter 8 and verse 34. Jesus says, "I tell you the truth, everyone who sins is a slave to sin." Do you sin? If you're being honest, you'll say yes. Well, here comes the question, why do you sin? And the shocking answer is, you are enslaved to it. We all are. Everyone who sins is a slave to sin. It's not just that we happen to make bad decisions. We don't simply choose to sin. We are slaves to sin. We think that we are in charge of our sins and we choose to do this or that sin. Actually, our sins are in charge of us. We are like the alcoholic, free to choose beer, wine, or spirits, freely making decisions in that sense, but enslaved to the drink. We don't like to think of ourselves as enslaved to sin. We want to imagine that we can clean up our act and straighten up and fly right. But we need more than a self-help recovery plan in order to change. We need redemption. We need deliverance from slavery. If we want true change, we need to cry out to our Redeemer. Of course, we don't like to do that. And we don't like to think of ourselves as helpless. So we avoid the truth about ourselves at all costs. Just read on to the next verse in John chapter 8, and you'll see a powerful example of living in denial. The Jews, listening to hear Jesus speak of our slavery, then say, John chapter 8 and verse 33, "We are Abraham's descendants and have never been slaves of anyone. How can you say that we shall be set free?" The denial here is incredible, isn't it? Abraham's descendants, the Jewish nation, have been perhaps the most enslaved people on the planet. They've been slaves to the Egyptians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Persians, the Medes, the Greeks, and even as they defend themselves to Jesus, you can imagine a Roman soldier listening in, shaking his head and chuckling. Not slaves of anyone? Really? These Jews have been in bondage to pretty much everyone in the ancient world. Is there anyone to whom they hadn't become slaves? Yet how quickly they reimagine their history, and how often we reimagine our own. We have an astonishing ability to think of ourselves as free, and in so doing we flee from the truth. I remember speaking with a friend of a friend who is an atheist, and as we spoke about Christian things, he hated the idea of religion, since he said religion is only a crutch for the weak. And I said, well, I for one need a crutch. I'm broken. And he could not identify with that admission of weakness. A few days later, though, I heard about the mess of his life and the degree to which binge drinking dominates his world. He simply was not the strong, liberated person that he wanted to project to the world. And because he couldn't face the truth of his own need and slavery, he lived in denial. And that very denial, that flight from the truth, was the very essence of his slavery. And that's what all of us do naturally. Ashley Null once summarized our human condition like this. He said, "What the heart loves, the will chooses, and the mind justifies." This is how we all tick. We love something, so we go after it, and only afterwards do we come up with the reasons. What the heart loves, the will chooses, and the mind justifies. Ordinarily, we love all the wrong things, and so we chase after them. And even if we're extremely clever, we're not actually honest truth seekers following the facts where they lead us. We only use our minds to justify ourselves and to justify our own enslaving desires. That's our human condition. And we desperately need the truth to come and set us free. How does it work? Well, Jesus goes on in John chapter 8, verse 35. Now a slave has no permanent place in the family, but a son belongs to it forever. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. In verse 32, Jesus says, the truth sets you free. In verse 36, Jesus says, the Son sets you free. So the Son is equivalent to the truth. Jesus is the truth, truth with a capital T, who sets you free. He comes into our little delusional worlds and he says, you've been looking for love in all the wrong places. You've been enslaved by foolish desires. I have come to tell the truth. I have come to be the truth, to shine my light into your darkness. I am the Son, the one who is truly free. I rest in my Father's arms. I'm filled by the Spirit of freedom. I am your true spiritual home. When you have me, you have liberation, light, life, and love. And Jesus says to us, stop living in denial. Stop living in darkness. Confess your weakness. Confess your slavery. Confess your lies. Come home to me, says Jesus, in dependence and honesty. Jesus says to each of us today, I am the truth who sets you free.